evening, our viewers, and thanks for joining us. I'm Karaga Boardrooms, and we're coming to you live from the Kampala International Conference Center. We break normal programming to bring you a very important discussion about our national development, and that is on the issue of the oil projects that are going on around the country. As at June 2016, Uganda had discovered huge oil resources estimated at 6.5 billion barrels of oil equivalent in place, with about 1.4 to 1.7 billion barrels of these resources recoverable. Of course, one barrel is an equivalent of about 159 litres. So the country plans to build a refinery in the western region to meet local and regional demand, with the rest exported via pipeline to the Tanga port, of course, which is at the Indian Ocean in Tanzania. Today we're going to look at one of the projects, key projects that is being handled, and that is the Tilenga project. There is a social and environmental assessment that has been done, and I have a resplendent panel that is a collection of all those stakeholders in management of that project who are going to give us an overview and an update on that project. And our viewers kindly join me with my panel. And on the extreme left, I have Dr. Tom Okrut. He is the NEMA National Environment Management Authority Executive Director. You're welcome, Mr. Dr. Okrut. Yes, and in the middle, I have Dr. Joseph Kobushesha, the Petroleum Authority of Uganda representative.
Thank you, and good afternoon, viewers.
Yeah, and in the middle there, I have Mr. Isaac Ntuju, Principal Environmental Inspector for Oil and Gas, NEMA. Gentlemen, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the Tilenga project refers to the development and production of oil fields within the Maction Falls Park, north of the Victoria Nile in Nuoya district and south of Victoria Nile in Bulisa district. The name Tilenga is derived from the two local names of the Uganda cob antelope, which is called Teal in Acholi and Engabi in Uganda. So starting with you, Dr. Tom Okrut, just give us a brief overview, a brief historical overview, and how we come to actually have this project started up.
Thank you very much. The Albertine Graben region, which is in that part of Uganda, historically was found to be having large deposits of oil, and that's what led the government to do detailed exploration and discovered a lot of quantities of oil reserves, just as you have mentioned. Now, part of this the oil resources, as indicated, are in that region, the north of the Nile and the south of the Nile, in the area now that we call Tilenga. Tilenga is, as you said, is just an acronym married from the two, because also it has a commonality, is antelope, and the commonality between the two regions is also oil. So that's how we get it. But the Tilenga project, ideally, it involves the production and development of oil fields that are in that area. And the development will involve basically drilling of oil. They are going to drill about 400 wells, but they are going to use about 32 pads, oil pads, to reach that oil. And from the 32 pads, the oil now will be transported. The one in the north of Lake Victoria will be transported through the Nile, going to go through a pipeline below the River Nile and bring it to a place in Bulisa where it's going to be processed. That means processing it to improve it, because the nature of the oil is, as indicated, is heavy oil. So to improve it to a level, removing all the impurities. And then from there it is taken to Hoima, which is the main hub where the oil will be sent, shared to the refinery, and then the other exported through the oil pipeline. That process also involves extraction a lot of water from Lake Albert. Okay? It also involves production of a lot of waste in terms of solid waste and liquid waste and air emissions. It also involves, it will have some social impact. It will be done in areas. It might have a lot of infrastructure coming into the area. All those added together will generate an impact on the environment and the people. And by law, if such a project takes place, a detailed environmental and social impact assessment study must be undertaken, from which we will assess and determine what type of mitigation measures must be put in place to prevent or to reduce the impact of the potential risks that are there. Because We want the Maction Bay, that area, the Albert and Graben, particularly National Park, to continue being a tourist destination for us. That heritage is given to us, and it should be on now and after the oil. So the assessment, therefore, gives us an opportunity to identify all those things, to generate mitigation measures, and therefore, during the process, we have minimal impact on the environment, and the society will not be disturbed. We create opportunities.
Okay,
that is the project.
Okay, yeah. Good synopsis about that. And Dr. Joseph Kobusheshe, we just need to understand the project, the project development arrangement. How much oil do you expect? Let's first talk about the project itself before we talk about the report in detail, as he was alluding. How much oil is expected to be extracted? Who intends to extract it, and how long is that production, lifespan, the commercial production lifespan, expected to last?
The Executive Director of the National Environment Management Authority has already mentioned some of the key components of this project: the 6 oil fields, the number of wells that are going to be drilled. We are looking at over 400 wells to be drilled from between 32 to 34 well pads. And each of these well pads are going to have flow lines, as he said, that lead to a central processing facility. And
flow lines are the pipelines, because you need to use similar language.
Yes, so it's a pipe. We can call it a pipe, just like we have the water pipes here that we are familiar with from the National Water and Sewerage Corporation. But of course, the design and the complexity is much more than that. But it's a pipe, and it's a pipe that is carrying petroleum. Petroleum that has been drilled from underground and is transported to the central processing facility. It is separated. So from the well, it comes with water, it comes with gas, and that has to be separated before it can be sent through what we call a feeder pipeline. And this is also another really pipeline that is taking the crude to the central hub at Kabale. So the other components of this project include the water abstraction point, as was mentioned. So a lot of water will be required to inject in the ground in order to boost up the pressures and enhance the oil recovery. So in total, we are looking at a volume of about 190,000 barrels of oil to be produced from the Tilenga project per day. And if you want that in a more familiar unit that we are used to, say in liters, you could take it as a barrel equals to approximately 150 liters. So you're looking at 150 times 190,000 barrels of oil to be produced per day from the Tilenga project alone. And this will be over what we call a plateau, so over a sustained period of about 4 to 5 years. Will take about 1 to 2 years to get to that. So from first oil, when you're at 0, and then to hit that target of 190,000 barrels per day, that can take up to 1 to 2 years, and then that is sustained for the period I've mentioned before the production starts falling down. What I should mention also is that in addition to the Tilenga project, we have the Kingfisher project down south of the Lake Albert, and that will be a subject of another discussion, but we also expect that about 40,000 barrels of oil can be produced from that field. So
the commercial production lifespan is about 2 years in implicit terms?
No. The commercial production of the Tilenga field spans over a period of 25 years. 25 years. The design at the moment, and potentially that could be extended for another 5 years. Okay,
approximately 30 years. Thanks indeed. And just as we've been talking about the components, I actually read through the report very extensively and tried to consume. So the temporary components, Isaac Ntuju. Yes, please. Yes, so the temporary components are listed as the construction camp within the industrial area. You have the construction support base within still the same area. You have the construction support base at Tangi, and then the permanent components, you have the industrial area, CPF, and other facilities. You can expand on that. And then well pads, pipelines, and flow lines, lake water abstraction system, just as we've been saying. So I just want you to help us. How much land are you going to need, or in this particular assessment you have made, are you seeking for this complex, and how do you intend to compensate the damage to the people and to the environment? Because this sounds a huge complex.
Thank you, Baldwin. I think we need to first get it correct that it is not NEMA or the Petroleum Authority that is running this project or that is seeking land. Actually, what NEMA wants is we want to get the opinions of the stakeholders out there. But from the submission that has come from the developer to the National Environment Management Authority, of course, the Executive Director and Dr. Kobusheshi have talked about 34 well pads. On average, a well pad will be about 8 to 9 hectares. Okay? So that if you have 34 times 8 or 9, then you can see the amount of land required. Then there are all these other infrastructure, the temporary facilities.
Let me first understand, is that one unit span of land, or it is like just variated and placed like spatial in different areas? Are you looking at one chunk piece of land?
No. They are located in different, within a large area, both in Noya and Bulisa, but spread across in several places. So there is land that will be required for the permanent facilities. Obviously, there are the temporary facilities, as you've alluded to, that those will be occupied for a period of probably 2 to 5 years, and then, after things are put in place, the developer comes out and, and probably relinquishes that land for other use by the traditional
users. When you talk about the developer, who is the developer?
The developer is Total E&P Uganda, in conjunction with Tullow Oil Pty Uganda. But obviously, as you might have read, there are also other stakeholders, other oil companies like CNOOC and the Uganda National Oil Company that have a key stake in what Total is doing. But Total is the key developer under the circumstances. So they will require land for the installation of these facilities so that the oil can come out. And like we've said, we're looking at part of the national park, not necessarily taking over, but making use of it. Within Bulisa, they will construct a few roads. There will be access roads. There will be right of way for pipelines. There will be the industrial park, the water abstraction units, where that they will be using. The camps, the borrow pits, sources of material. So in total, it is about 110,000 hectares as an estimate in the 2 districts. But that is land that the project will require in the interim, and that is what has been presented in the ESIA.
Okay, I want to ask how long that particular possession of that land will take, because I think that's a different discussion. I need to go for a break, and when I come back, we're going to continue in the same detail. And I'm going to ask Dr. Crude to give some of the specific aspects that are cited in this particular report. And our viewers, thanks for joining us this pretty afternoon as we discuss this unique matter. Actually, a very potential matter to develop this nation. We'll be back after this break. Thanks for joining us back again. We're discussing the Tilenga project, and an environmental and social assessment has been done, and that project is going to be one of those particular components that will facilitate oil production targets and aspirations of Uganda. And I'm here with a very resplendent panel of representatives for this field of especially oil production. And Dr. Crude, the NEMA Executive Director. So this report is about, the summary report is about 42, I think, pages. So we want to understand some of the key issues that are depicted in this particular report and how reflective they are, not necessarily for the convenience of the developer who you're trying to give this task to make the assessment and then give you the feedback, and NEMA, of course, involved. What key issues? About 3 or 4 issues that were cited from this assessment, both for on the side of the society, the social fabric there, and environment.
Thank you very much. The summary, the document that we put in the newspaper is an extract summary, really, because our documents are quite voluminous. But we have availed these documents to many libraries and scholars, and those interested can read in the details. But the environment social aspect outlines about 4 issues that as you want to emphasize. One, there is potential for pollution of water, there is potential for pollution of land, there is potential for pollution of air. That is articulated there, and very clearly. Two, there are going to be social issues that might arise. You already alluded to 110 hectares of land, some of it, of course, in the national park. So some people may have to be displaced, and some compensation, of course, will be done. And associated with people is going to be an influx of people to that area. So there are going to be new people that are going to go there.
Yes.
That can cause planning issues to the local governments there, which should be done. Then in the park itself, we are going to have a large infrastructure. Normally, usually at the beginning, at the construction period, a lot of equipment and whatever, that might have impact on tourism. That's what the document outlines. But for each of these, the client have proposed how they are going to mitigate, how they are going to, for instance, for water pollution or for pollution in general, they have proposed how they are going to handle the waste that's going to be generated to the extent that it does not cause the pollution that it has. Similarly to air pollution that's going to come, noise, vibration, because of that, and light.
Yes.
Because if you're going to drill, the city is going to be very bright. We call it a city. That's the drilling rig and all that. So those are the issues that will occur. But for each, they have proposed mitigation measures, how to minimize each of them. And that is what we put in the paper in summary. And even, for instance, the issue of the excessive machinery during the process of construction, particularly, because as is indicated, 36 well pads, and they are going to do horizontal drilling to really collect the oil from all the 400 wells to these 36 and then pump it out. So that infrastructure may, if you look at it, may affect the tourism. But we have also, the consultant, the client has also proposed how that is going to be minimized, particularly during construction. For instance, the type of vehicles which are going to go there must camouflage, so that when they look at them, you don't see a white car. You don't expect very many white cars in the park during that time, so camouflage, and also time of movement, and at night, for instance, dimming the lights, and so forth and so forth. So those have been proposed, and we have highlighted them in this document. And the purpose of bringing this out is to really give opportunity to the general public to read and say, is that all? If that's all, if that's not all, if you bring others that you think are there, that we might have missed, bring it out and we discuss.
And one of the things I think, just slightly, maybe in 1 minute, it's not a question I prepare. The long-term effect, especially the aftermath of the whole production lifespan of this project, what happens to that infrastructure? Can it be extracted from the ground and perhaps recycled? What happens to that kind of fabric that has been created that becomes now redundant and literally useless, but it is still affecting people?
No, we have a decommissioning plan, complete decommissioning plan. At the end of life of each of those, there's a decommissioning plan to remove whatever is not needed again, so that we can reconstruct the place as before, even after 25 years. So that is already planned for each of those.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So Isaac, the Total, Total, and of course Talo, which are your clients that you're trying to have to develop this project, they were given the task to have and to follow national and international best practices, like the IFC performance standards requirements, in particular the requirement for the assessment of feasible alternatives of the project to respond to social and environmental characteristics of the project area. So how much of these principles do you find that actually have been followed? And how much of that particular following is also involving the ordinary people, rather than to put engineers and drillers and all these experts, the doctors, at the forefront? How is that being done to make sure that you follow those standards, especially the involvement of people?
Thank you very much. First, I think it is important to know that EIA is quite highly consultative, the EIA process. And when you talk about certain principles, obviously there are international standards when doing environmental assessments and preparing for projects of this magnitude. And those are what you've talked about, the International Financing Corporation requirements and the World Bank. There are those thresholds or those international bodies that require that the project has minimum impacts on environment and society, so that there is equity as the development goes on. And those, the developer endeavors to follow those. But then we also have national requirements. And our environmental law tends to put in place certain, guidelines and guidance on how the impact assessment should be conducted. So a combination of the two, I think, works in the best interest of the country, because sometimes there are international standards that address emerging issues that have come up even after the law has been put in place. So I think it's very complementary. Nonetheless, I think when they're doing environmental assessment, they need to be highly to consult across the,
Yes.
And even what we are doing right now is the review of the ESIA. The authority has come to the general public again to consult the key stakeholders. But so it is highly consultative. But therein lies certain principles. Things like we have what we call a mitigation hierarchy. First, at the foundation of it all is, can you avoid the impacts? Can you avoid
Yes.
causing an impact, So avoidance is key, and Dr. Krut has, I think, mentioned it, that we need to avoid. If we cannot avoid, then we mitigate, okay? And sometimes even beyond mitigation, we need to be able to reduce at least as much as possible. We can't avoid, but reduce as much as possible this impact, and the residual impact must be mitigated. And beyond mitigation, at least there must be the ability to offset or compensate for some of these. So those are principles that should be inherent in this document. And the developer has endeavored, but we still feel, the general public needs to give us their feel of it. It may be that the technical persons at NEMA and in the lead agencies, the officers of government, could see something, but there could be, some undercurrents or something that tries to slip under without the knowledge of the technical institutions, and that's why we involve the public. So the principle of review, of preparation of the document, review of the document is very highly consultative, and that is why I think before we come to final decision, we shall have a good, robust project in terms of the environmental and social aspects that relate to the development.
Yes. Thanks, brilliantly articulated, and hopefully it is coherent with the report itself. And Dr. Joseph, so you've mentioned the well pads, which I know that number you have. Each of those well pads have about between 4 and to 21 wells, and in that same area in which that region in which you're getting to do this project, the Maction Falls Conservation Area. Of course, you might not do it inside the park, but that particular area, the Maction Falls Conservation Area and the adjacent Budongo Forest Reserve, have about 76 species of mammals, as well as Uganda's largest population of Nile crocodiles, 450 bird species, ranging from easy variety of water birds, including the rare shoe-billed stork, Budongo's 59 restricted area. So you have all this particular natural fabric that is naturally inherent to us, a treasure that every human being is interested in. So there is an economic value. So I just want you to help us understand the economic impact, the economic value of that. But is it really worth us having to sacrifice this inherent natural gold for that economic benefit that you're looking at?
Thank you. First, I should correct you.
Yes.
We are not sacrificing all that very important economic benefit that you mentioned for the sake of oil.
Yeah.
Actually, our aim and why we are here is to ensure that we maintain that economic value that you mentioned, the wonderful scenery that we have in that area, the wonderful biodiversity that exists in that area, and the benefits that it brings, including tourism and so forth. So we want to maintain that. And at the same time, we want to realize the benefits from our very, very important God-given resource, which is oil and gas in this country. And yes, the economic impacts of the oil and gas sector and the Tilenga project in particular are enormous. First, you look at the investment that this project and the other projects will bring into the country. To my understanding, the biggest investment project that this country has had so far should be like Karuma, where you single project, where you're looking at about just over $1 billion invested. Here for the Tilenga project alone, you're looking at between 3 and 4 billion to be invested in the Tilenga project, and this is foreign investment. It is not coming from your pocket. It is not coming from my pocket. But overall, if you look at the other projects that the country is currently taking forward, the Kingfisher project, which I mentioned earlier, the East African Crude Oil Pipeline, the refinery, all these are going to bring in an investment of about $20 billion in the next 2 to 3 years alone. So that is a huge amount of investment that this sector is attracting to this country. The other benefits at national level, of course, is going to be the revenue and the taxes that are going to accrue from this sector. So you're looking at royalty, which is the government revenue as a result of its resource, because this is really a resource that is for the country, that is for Ugandans. So that is going to come in. And in addition, what we are already seeing, for example, in the aspect of infrastructure development in this region. If you are in this region 10 years ago, and you go there now, you're going to see a very, very big change. And a big percentage of this is attributed to the oil and gas sector. So we have roads being worked on. We have the ICT infrastructure backbone being extended to these areas.
This is public, our own public investment, not foreign direct investment.
That's public.
Partly public, but also partly foreign investment. For example, the Kampala International Airport, which is currently under construction, is actually a foreign investment. So, in summary, we have the aspect of infrastructure, a lot of development infrastructure in this region. We have skills transfer. This sector is new. In the 1990s, you could barely find a petroleum course at any of our universities. Now you have so many universities offering petroleum courses. You have so many training centers relating to oil and gas being set up. And these Ugandans are being trained within these institutions, but they are also trained on the job in the sector, and they work in the sector, but we can now also export foreign labor in the expertise of the oil and gas sector. So really, there are enormous benefits that this is bringing, the direct and indirect employment opportunities. You're looking at between 100 and 150,000 Ugandans to be employed within the sector over the next 2 to 3 years, and this is at different levels. So you have the highly skilled, you have the skilled, you have the semi-skilled, but you also have the non-skilled. So everybody will have to, and everybody should be able to enjoy the cake. Yes.
Yeah, it sounds a very pretty, flowery indeed picture and prospect, and I believe you're authentic about it. Just Dr. Tom, before I go for the break, you've been making a promotion about people coming to review, you've alluded to it, to review this report. And it's just controversial because the time that you've given for people to review, because you made an advert, I think, in the Monitor on the 16th of October, just recently, and you sought that people should come in and have a review of this report and make a submission just after, I think, 7 days. And people are saying, what, you have something you're hiding, why are you rushing this whole thing? And how engaged is it that these people, you're trying to get the views of these people? So just help clarify on that. How do people get to access this report, and for how long, and how are you going to come to the decision of actually commissioning this report?
Okay, thank you. I think we received this document earlier. We have had two different, of course there are several publics that are here. We have it on the internet, on the websites of NEMA, Petroleum Authority, and Total. It's been there. And for those who are ICT, you can get it. We then advertised extract in the newspaper, and we gave almost nearly about 3 weeks, 3 weeks period for people to give comments. Actually, this is a summary, as I said, summary of issues that we want them to deal with. So we think within those 3 weeks, the public is there. But as lead agencies of government, with NEMA, work with NEMA, we have also done our review. We have almost spent about the same period reviewing the document and going through all the 9 volumes that were given in detail. We have our own views. But as by law, we noticed that there are some issues that we want to share with the public. So that's why we put this on the public, and eventually we're going to have a public hearing where people will come and give their views in public. You can do it, well, in the documents that were circulated, we indicate that they can give comments, writing and whatever. But if you are unable to, if you are unable to do that, you are in the region or you want to travel, you're able to come there and give public hearing. We have done it for several similar projects. We did it for Karuma, we did it for Isimba, we did it for the Talanga project, and we're still going to do for.
Where do you intend to have it? When and who?
So we are going to, it's a public. Everybody in the public is invited.
All right.
We are going to hold it on 12th and 15th. 12th will be in the Bulisa.
Of this month?
Bulisa, yeah, 12th of this month. Bulisa district grounds. And then on the 15th is in Gotafoye Primary School in Nwaya district, where the publics there will be invited. There are many publics who will be impacted directly by the project, who are near there, who have other issues other than what we might have written there.
Of course.
And that's what we need to capture during the public hearing. It's open.
Okay.
Every person is invited.
Yeah.
And I really want to assure that from our experience of previous public hearing, you get very interesting issues that are raised by the public, which have not been taken care of, even by us, even by the client. But during the public hearing, people come out with this view. And it's during that we shall clarify, give answers. And I think at the end we agree that the project is good. It has proposed mitigation measures that are adequate. We can get the oil. You asked this guy about economic impacts. What we want to get is that at the end of these 25 years or so, our natural heritage continues to be there.
Our national heritage, okay, yeah.
Well, and our job is to ensure that the extraction of the oil will not compromise our natural heritage. This is one of the processes that we are going to go through to ensure that that is achieved.
Okay, and it sounds brilliant. And I'm just going to go for a short break, and when we come back, the East African region, especially Uganda, is having such a very humongous ambition about oil production, making sure that we have the proficiency and the commercial competence, rather power, in the region. And so we are joined to the Uganda-Tanzania oil pipeline. I want you to give me just an update, Dr. Joseph, about that particular aspiration. Now, viewers, thanks for keeping with us. We're going to go for a short break, and when I come back, the lines will be opened. Make your contribution, and let's have a way that we understand each other, whether this is really potentially great for this nation. Thanks. Thanks, our viewers, for joining us once again. We're discussing a very unique matter of national development, which is the Tilenga project, dealing with the development of the oil extraction and, of course, processing and the commercial outlet of that eventually, to make sure that Uganda is richer and Ugandans are richer. And there is the Uganda-Tanzania Crude Oil Pipeline project, which is an East African ambition, and of course, majorly between Uganda and Tanzania, also known as the East African Crude Oil Pipeline, which is under construction and intended to transport crude oil from Uganda oil fields to the port of Tanga, Tanzania, of course, on the Indian Ocean. This came up on the 13th Northern Corridor Heads of State Summit in Kampala in April 2016, where Uganda officially chose the Tanzania route for this particular project. And of course, initially it had been preferred for Kenya, but I think the cost there became extremely impossible. So, Dr. Kobusesha Joseph, I need you to help. The Tilenga project is interconnected with this. It's part of the processes of building up this massive regional project. Help us just understand how viable this project is. Of course, I'm talking about the East African, this particular Uganda-Tanzania crude oil project. And what are the timelines? How far are we in these particular timelines themselves?
Okay. The best way to explain the East African crude oil pipeline, the ECOP, as you stated it is one of the means of commercialization, getting money from the crude that is going to be produced from the Tilenga project. And here you're looking at the export route of commercialization. So it is going to be a 1,445 kilometer pipeline that starts from the central hub, so where all the oil that is collected from the different fields is
Kabale,
gathered. Yes, at Kabale. And from there, so that's the starting point in Uganda at Kampala, the source of the pipeline. And then it travels for 1,445 kilometers, initially through a number of districts in Uganda, from Hoima, Chivoga, Sembabule, Mubende, Kyotera, so forth, up to Mutukula, then enter through Tanzania and goes all the way to Tanga, as you mentioned. It is one of the huge investments projects, as I mentioned. You're looking at about $3 to $4 billion investment. And in total... Is
this all entirely FDI, or that the government's involved? It's entirely FDI?
No, it is going to be a private-public partnership.
Okay, PPP. Okay. Yeah.
And then you're looking at about 200,000 barrels of oil to be evacuated through this pipeline per day over the design life again of 25 years. The peak maximum it can carry, as I said, 200,000 barrels, but of course this depends on the availability, because the allocation will need also to take care of a 60,000 barrel refinery that is also going to be developed within the same area of the Kampala Industrial Park.
So the timelines, I'm thinking, do you feel you are on schedule, behind schedule? And our callers, please call in just to help me participate in the interrogation. Yes.
Okay. So in terms of the pipelines, this is ongoing. It started with the various agreements that needed to be put in place. So as you can imagine, this is a cross-state pipeline. So there needs to be a framework of the pipeline relating to how the government of Uganda and the government of Tanzania cooperate on this pipeline. That was signed. Then there also needs to be a framework under which the government of Uganda relates to the pipeline as Uganda. So the IGA, and again, that is currently ongoing. The negotiations are in advanced stages, and we hope that can be concluded. Then the route has been surveyed and pretty much identified the environmental and social constraints along the route. Currently, there are what we call geophysical and geotechnical studies that are ongoing, and these really are meant to inform the various infrastructure, so the trenching, the different facilities that are going to be put in place. These are currently ongoing, especially in the districts that I just mentioned. And also this pipeline will require land, so the resettlement action plan for this corridor for the pipeline is already also ongoing. So going forward, then the front end engineering design, so the design of the pipeline, if I can put it that way, that has also been completed and is currently being reviewed by government for consideration. And the next stage really now is going to be getting the tractors and what we call the engineering, procurement and construction phase. And of course, this once completed then comes into the development phase, which will now lead to first oils, because as we produce, we must have a plan for how we commercialize. And the two have to move kind of in tandem. So you're comfortable with the progress so far? Yeah. Isaac, I just need to help us how this whole project is being supervised. And because I can see your representative agencies, authorities that are dealing with this, but how is the project supervised, and how strong is the ordinary person? For instance, if we have a grievance with the project itself or with the company and I want to take them head on, how empowered am I as an individual? Don't lump me into government. How are people empowered to actually make sure that they can deal with this project, implementers and of course all the stakeholders involved in this regard? And how do you supervise? How is this whole project being supervised?
Thank you very much. I think if you've been following the discussion, the project has other dimensions to it. There are other revenue dimensions, which I think there are institutions that manage matters of revenue. There is the resource dimension, where the crude itself, has to be managed, and the volumes and things like that. Then there's the environmental angle. And if that is where you're coming in, the environmental angle, because we have a law in place, which law has recently been, upgraded or reviewed, simply to take care of the issues that were the emerging issues that were the gaps in the previous law. And so we have the National Environment Management Authority obviously in place, and that gives the general overall supervision in terms of the environmental issues. But the National Environment Act still empowers other institutions, because it's a framework law. There are what we call lead agencies. For instance, if there are issues happening in the national park, then you cannot delink this project from the supervision of the Uganda Wildlife Authority. Okay? If there is something happening on the waters, there's the Directorate of Water Resources Management. These are regulators. They give you the permits that you do need, so they look at matters of equity. You want so much water. Do you are you taking all the water? Do you leave enough volumes for the other users of these resources? You have the National Forestry Authority. You have the local governments, you know, like the Bulisa District local governments. All these are entities that have mandates to oversee and to make sure that things are done right in respect of this
just
project.
On that point, politely, let me pause it so that we engage the caller.
Sure.
Hello, I can hear a call buzzing. Okay, they have dropped. Apologies, Isaac. Just
yes. So that is those agencies are already in place. But then again, the local communities should not feel disempowered. Definitely, if someone is committing a crime against you, we don't think that the security agencies or the systems that are already in place, you know, can disenfranchise the general public to the extent that they suffer the brutality that the project may or could be bringing upon them in silence, or that they have no avenue, they have no place to appeal. The agencies, the authorities have a presence on the ground. NEM myself will have a presence all the time, and so the community, we shall have avenues of engaging with the communities. The district local governments have officers that we work very closely with. So there are avenues for people that are disgruntled or that feel something is not right to raise their concerns, and we are hopeful that in all this project shall have all eyes on it and things will be done right.
Okay, so human rights issues are also taken care of.
Yeah, okay. Yes, and we always listen, even civil society, we listen.
Just a second, I don't want to lose this other caller. Hello, good evening. Okay, unfortunately, I'm told there's a call and then there's no call. All right, so thanks, Isaac, about that. Dr. Okrut, just in conclusion, unless we have a phone call, what support do you need from the public? Because, of course, I don't want to make the impression that government is really fully self-dependent and nothing is needed from the public. Yeah. What do you need from the public to support this project to succeed?
I think that, just to pick on from what Isaac, before I come to that project, that the Constitution of Uganda ensures that every Ugandan has got a right to a healthy and clean environment. That's a right enshrined in the Constitution. And that right imposes a responsibility on the local people to demand that they have a clean and a healthy environment, including where this project is going on. And so the public are going to be watchers, our eye watchers. They're going to be people to say, hey, you guys, this is going wrong. You say this company is dealing with the pollution, they're removing the solid waste, but it's actually dumping it here. And we're going to be there. They're going to be a part and parcel of the people to manage the environment, because this oil, actually, the government has structure. The Minister of Energy and Minerals, of course, is overall in charge of this. But when it comes to environment, we come in. And the Minister of Finance also is taking the money. So, but the Minister of Energy is the one. But each of us there has a role. We have a role to alert the Petroleum Authority that things are not going well here. And they have a functional role to deal with what? With the other people. We have a role linking to the community, civil society, who are there, and the Albert and government, they are going to be our partners. But we need to get the community support that this project, as he has intended, is intended by government made a decision to get oil. It also wants its natural heritage for the good of Ugandans. So if the government intended that, it's just incumbent that the population helps us recover this, be part and parcel, so that this oil is recovered in a manner that will generate the benefits that are anticipated, but also sustain them for the future. But by being just active partners, we've not talked about the oil spill contingency planning. Yeah. Should there be an oil spill? The people to see the oil spill may be the villagers. Once you see it, we have already we already established what you should do. Quickly, once you see an oil spill, this is what you should do. That's the role of the community to support the project. Yeah. Yeah,
and on that note, of course, I've waited for the phone calls. They will not come in. Probably people are very keen. The topic is extremely captivating to the point that they have to concentrate on hearing. So I think you made a brilliant case. Let me just get a minute from each of you to make a conclusion about, especially Dr. Kobusha representing PRIU and all of you, back to Dr. Crude. Just a minute, your last take on this particular matter, especially on the assessment and the future of this project.
2 points I think I would like to make. One relating specific to the Tilenga project, and as the executive director mentioned, the scheduled, the planned public hearings that are going to be held in Bulisa on the 12th of November, which is just over a week away, and on 15th in Noya. That is one of several other means that have been made available for the general public to participate in the decision making of this project. And the idea really would be to get ideas from the general public as in how the beneficial impacts of this project can be enhanced. So we need to make sure that we maximize as much benefits from this project as we can, and of course, as was said earlier, to ensure that we can minimize as much as possible or eliminate all the negative impacts of the project. Okay. The last one I would like to make in summary is overall the economic benefits of the sector to the country, to Ugandans, the need to ensure that as Ugandans we are prepared to partake of the benefits, the economic benefits that this oil and gas sector in general is going to bring to the country.
Okay, thank you so much indeed. Isaac, just a minute, kindly.
Thank you. Mine would be a request to the general public and all stakeholders to pick interest in some of these projects. Joseph has just mentioned to us that probably this is the biggest, it's going to be the biggest investment that the country will have had in such a long time. And so it is important that the taxpayer, that all Ugandans pick an interest and go and look at this report. Take time and study. The extracts that have been presented in the newspapers, in the press, or to the public, have been given to the public. They are simply, tidbits probably. And if there is more that tickles your interest, please pick it out and feel free to always get back to the authority through the avenues that have been availed. Please visit the NEMA website, the website of the Petroleum Authority of Uganda. Even the developer himself, Total, has put it on their website. And so the ESIA, we are really looking forward to receiving the comments. The executive director mentioned it, that there are things that could have simply been missed, And the people who are affected, who are the key stakeholders, are not only those in Bulisa. We always state that environmental issues cannot be localized. So let someone in probably in Arua not say that, oh, that is south in Bulisa. Because once there's air pollution, you do not know where the winds will carry, So those are things that we want the entire country to pick up and work hand in hand with the authority.
Okay, thank you indeed. Dr. Crude,
yeah, thank you very much. I want to invite the public to appreciate that the government of Uganda has attracted investment for this oil at this time.
Yes.
The oil has been there, but the decision to extract it is this time when we are leaving. And so those of us who are leaving should experience positive gains from this. And we want to assure the public that if we work together as a team, government, the civil society, the local government, the traditional leaders, in this case, the oil will be extracted, our tourism will also continue. Combined revenue from those will transform our country.
Yeah. Wow, indeed. Dr. Tomo Crude, NEMA Executive Director, and Dr. Joseph Kobusheshe, representative of PRAU, and Isaac Ntuju, Principal Environment Inspector for Oil and Gas, NEMA. Really been profoundly prolific in your presentation, and I think you made this point clear, and I believe whoever has watched understands the synopsis of this particular assessment. And thanks our viewers for keeping with us, and we are committed to bring you the world through NTV. And if you're out there as a company or organization or government ministry and you want to contextualize and actually customize a discussion about any issue that you're concerned about, come talk to us, talk to our general manager, talk to our sales team or myself, and we'll guide you on how to do that. Keep logged on to NTV. Indeed, the beat is next. I'm Kaga Baldwins. God bless.